Now that's the Wembanyama that we know and love.
You are Locked On Spurs, your daily San Antonio Spurs podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
Hey, welcome back to Locked On Spurs, right here on the Locked On NBA Network. I am your host, Jeff Garcia, Spurs beat writer for KENS 5 San Antonio, and I'm glad to have you back. Thanks for making Locked On Spurs your first choice every single day for all things silver and black. We appreciate you. Subscribe at the YouTube page, iTunes, Spotify, KENS 5 Plus app. Literally, just go to any podcast provider, look for Locked On Spurs. Likely will be there. Go subscribe. And we got a newsletter as well. It's in the description below. Go subscribe to that right now. And so that's the Wemby that we know and love, right? That's what we're waiting for. We're going to be asking, is Wemby back? Did he just need to get some time to get his rust off and get himself kind of one of the lesser quality teams to get a rhythm going? He joined another 5x5 stat line, 5x5 club. He did it all for the Spurs. We're going to be asking, is Wemby back? I think he is. We're going to see what our guest has to say. And then we're going to also just wrap up just what happened in Utah. What went right? Yeah, right for the Spurs because they got a W. Can't wait to hear what our guest has to say in just a few minutes. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Yeah, you want to go to FanDuel right now? You can start the season with a big return with FanDuel. New customers place a $5 bet and you'll get started with $150 in bonus bets if your first $5 bet wins. So go to FanDuel.com to get started. Yeah, your Spurs, they got the W. Picked up the W on the road, led by Victor Wembanyama. Yeah, a lot of Spurs fans were biting their fingernails saying, oh my God, this is not the Wemby. Where's that dominant force that we saw last year? What's going on here? Oh my God, he only had 5 points in the last game. He shot 5 attempts. What is going on? No need to fret. Just needed some time. And looks like Wemby's back on his gigantic anime feet. I'm pretty sure you all saw what he wore for Halloween yesterday. The Spurs did beat the Jazz 106-88, but they were led by Wemby. Yeah, he had a phenomenal game. Defensively, 5x5. We're getting to that. Offensively, knocking down threes, being aggressive, finding his teammates. That was the Wemby we knew. Could have just been simply just he needed some rhythm. Could have just simply maybe he just needed one of those teams on the calendar to get things going. Fortunately, it was the Jazz. One of the, winless still, 0-5. It's close. Spurs could have been the first team that got the Jazz the W. That was avoided. So Jazz go to 0-5. Spurs go to 2-2. Wemby looked sharp. I like what I saw. In 33 minutes, he was just dominating on the court. That's the Wemby that we know and love, right? So by the way, it looks like he didn't have any issues with the allergies. What if it was just simply that? He had allergies. It's very common for him to have allergies, especially if you live in Texas. But nevertheless, yeah, Wemby with a dominant performance. Just doing it all. 25 points. He had 5 blocks, 5 steals, 7 assists. There you go on. Yeah, sure. 9 rebounds. What else did he have? Oh, yeah, he made all his free throws, 3 for 3. He was just a force. But is he back? Could we expect this duplicate performance against Minnesota in San Antonio? Let's discuss that and more with our guest. He is back, everybody. Our go-to guy when the Spurs are on the road. And it's a post-game chat. He is Raul Dominguez, making his second appearance in a row. We're here Locked On Spurs. Make sure to follow him on X at Dominguez5. He is the AP sports writer right here in San Antonio. And crisis avoided, Raul. The Spurs didn't get the loss versus the Jazz. That would have been something. The pitchforks and flames would have been all over San Antonio.
Yeah, especially with Larry Markkinen being out, not being able to play.
Yeah.
We had talked about that. If the Spurs had lost to the Jazz, it was going to be a long flight home and more questions and more doubt, but they picked up a feel-good win.
Yeah, exactly. All right, let's go and talk about the man of the hour, Victor Wembanyama. Oh my goodness, Raul, that was the Wemby we've been waiting for. We saw a little flash of it early this season, but he kind of had a few down games, but he really looked like the dominant force. And I got to say, what worked well for him was the 3-shot. The 3-shot was falling for him last night.
Yeah, I don't know. It seemed like he had some really good moments, but he did struggle. He was missing. He missed quite a few 3-pointers in a row, and then kind of started getting his rhythm back. Spurs struggled a little bit early, but he was able just to kind of fight through it. And, sort of, we had talked about, whether or not Wemby's going to play, because he kind of looked like he kind of tweaked his ankle against Oklahoma City. But we had talked about, we expected Wemby to play just that way he could kind of, get that bad game out of his system and come back and help himself and help the Spurs. And he did that. He struggled a little bit, but he, when they needed him, he came through and showing flashes of what he was, late last season. So it's promising. He's going to have another bad game. He's going to have another bad game. He always gets up for Minnesota because of Rudy Gobert, but I'm sure he's going to have another bad game. Probably maybe fairly soon. But that doesn't mean anything. I mean, he's still kind of getting back into shape. He's still getting used to the team. So this is kind of what you expect. Even a player of his caliber, second season, you kind of expect him to maybe have a down game here and there.
Yeah, but against Utah, for sure, I think he needed this kind of performance to help push him in the right direction, because he was kind of trending in the wrong direction. But now, at least against Utah, we'll see against Minnesota, he is going on the upward tick, crossing fingers. I see the stats here, 4 for 13 from the 3 line, but the fact that it was falling for him early in the game, I think that gave him a sense of rhythm, as you mentioned. Overall, 9 for 20 for 45% shooting from the floor. Again, not the greatest outside shooting performance for him, but again, a lot better than what it was in the past few days. 1 for 5 in the previous game before Utah. That's unacceptable. 20 field goal attempts. I like that. He needs to be the guy touching the ball. He led the Spurs in attempts with 20. And what I also think helped Wemby get back on track, at least against Utah, was everybody was looking for him. You saw Chris Paul setting him up for the alley-oop. You saw in transition, they were looking for him. I like that. His teammates need to be involved. They need to understand Wemby is the focal point, and at least against Utah, they did that. They were feeding the big man, weren't they, Raul?
Yeah, they were. They definitely were looking for him, and for a while there seemed like I think it was in the second quarter. I think it seemed like he took like 4 or 5 shots in a row. Which is good. Beat him the ball. Even if he misses the shots, have him sort of be the center and have him get a rhythm. But the other thing that I think that really helped was one, his activity on the defensive end. Wemby really gets up for playing defense, and I think that feeds helps feed his offense. And the other thing was he did a great job. Sort of they did, Spurs, his teammates did a good job beating him, and he did a great job beating them. I mean, he had some had that one behind the back pass. It was
I saw that.
Sorry, I can't remember who. I think it was maybe Julian. I think it was, and then
I think he hit Chris Paul with a fancy pass too.
Yeah, so Wemby's a basketball player. He loves playing defense. He loves hitting the three. He loves making those passes. So, I think this was a good game for him where he was able to do a little bit of everything and sort of feel more like himself. Because Wemby's not a defensive specialist. He's not a 3-point specialist. He's everything. And I think when he gets rolling, there's that stat sheet fills up pretty quickly.
Oh yeah, for sure. Once again, he joins the 5x5 club, 5 steals, 5 blocks, getting done on the defensive end. He went into the game versus Utah, ranked 3rd in blocks in the league. So hopefully that'll help him inch closer to number 1 as he was last year. But when the bar was set low versus the previous game versus Utah, be ahead of Utah game. Taking 5 attempts, unacceptable. That just cannot happen. What do you expect? Of course, if your franchise player is not going to get fed, chances are you're not going to get the W. Spurs fed the guy today, and they got the W. Overall, I think this is not only a boost for him, confidence-wise, but also a boost for his teammates, because a lot of the teammates, were having to shoulder the load with Wemby having been off, and Julius Champagne, after his great preseason start, really he's kind of sputtered a bit in the last few games. But you saw guys step up like Malachi, Blake Wesley, Harrison Barnes, Chris Paul last night. There's 3. I think it was just infectious. Wemby's playing great. He's going aggressive to the rim. And that's what I liked about him last night, Raul. How aggressive was he? He was going to the rim. He was trying to complete dunks. He almost literally I mean, I think they would have called an APB on him right now because they almost put somebody in a coffin versus Utah with a spectacular missed dunk. Even his missed dunks were just insane. So I like that aggressiveness out of him. He needs to keep it up because if we're starting to see a pattern here, if another big man is at him, he's going to feast on him. He's going to try to get him off that dribble. We saw that versus Utah. You know, Kessler went at him and some of the other guys went at him, and he just took them to school, basically.
Yeah, it's sort of odd. You know, people talked about Wemby about they didn't know if he's going to be able to handle sort of the physicality with, you know, the big centers. And he seems to do pretty well. You know, he's done well against Gobert, did well tonight against Kessler. You know, he did well against Giannis and Joel Embiid. But he struggles against the smaller guys, which is, you know, a little odd. You know, you figured he'd dominate, but I think he's still trying to feel his way around there. But, you know, but yeah, I mean, I think that also helped him the fact that Utah had more big men on him, whereas Oklahoma just seemed like they threw everybody at him. Yeah. And I think, you know, the fact that he took 5 shots against Oklahoma City, he had the ball a lot. He just either couldn't get a shot up or he passed it up just because of people collapsing on him. Today, I think he was able to be able to sort of feel the game out more and have quite that same kind of pressure. And I think the other thing that really helped out is, you know, Chris Paul stepped up. One thing that I was noticing, Spurs don't really have a mid-range game right now. You know, Chris Paul, you know, stepped up tonight with that. Seems like a lot of it right now is 3-pointers or drives to the basket. Yeah. When Devin gets back, that's going to be a big help because Devin has a great mid-range game. I think that'll help open up the floor. And the other thing, it'll help Wemby as far as Devin and Wemby are great at the pick and roll. They got good chemistry.
Absolutely, absolutely. But you know what else will help everybody listening to this show? FanDuel. That's right, FanDuel. You got to go subscribe to it right now. Get that app. Do what you got to do. Get ready to tackle NFL action with FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. Yes, so get ready to tackle the NFL action with FanDuel's America's #1 sportsbook because right now new customers can bet $5 and they'll get $150 in bonus bets if you win. That's FanDuel's sportsbook app. That'll give you everything you need to place live bets on the NFL all in one spot. When you get a hunch in the middle of a game, you can check out the latest stats, view live play-by-play, and so much more on the same page where you place your bets. You want to go to FanDuel.com right now. By the way, that app is very easy to use, user-friendly, not hard to navigate. 1, 2, 3, you're done. Get your picks in. You're in and out. Hey, you know, it's the reason why it's America's #1 sports book. You'll get started with $150 in bonus bets if your first $5 bet wins. So you want to go to FanDuel.com right now. Never waste a hunch. Make every moment more with FanDuel, an official sportsbook partner of the NFL.
This is Emilio Rivera, El Padrino for the Mayans MC. You are listening to Locked On Spurs with Jeff Garcia.
All right, we're going to continue our chat about Wembanyama and then get into what happened versus Utah and why the Spurs won. Hopefully that'll carry over to the Minnesota game Saturday night in San Antonio. So more about Wemby before we do that transition, Raul. I want to ask you, and I guess maybe you already answered the question, though. It sounds like you're not ready to say, yeah, he's definitively back, are you?
Seemed like he got stronger as the game went along. But I was kind of watching him. I don't know if maybe the allergies are kind of bothering him. Like he looks like he's maybe a little congested or, you know, when someone doesn't feel quite 100%, you can kind of see it in their face. Just kind of seemed like that. I don't know. Maybe the allergies are getting to him. He looked a little tired at times. Saw him, you know, when he was kind of running down the court, seemed like he wasn't quite the victor where he's sprinting. So I think he's still kind of maybe getting back into condition. You know, I'm sure the altitude in Utah had something to do with it as well. But I think he's still kind of building into, you know, getting back into shape, getting back into, you know, his rhythm. And you know, the good part for Spurs fans is, you know, I still think he's still building toward, you know, getting back to who he was, but he's still having, you know, some of these big games. So, you know, just imagine once he gets a little bit more comfortable with his teammates, gets a little better conditioned, you know, hopefully the allergies, you know, go down, the pollen or whatever is bothering him. So, you know, it's I don't think he's back to where he was at late last season, but I think probably mid-November, you'll start seeing him have some really big games.
Yeah. I'm on that bandwagon already. I think he looked like he was involved. His teammates were involving him. I also think he had that look. I'm a nerd. Nobody should be surprised I'm saying this. That eye of the tiger from Rocky. He looked like he had that in him versus Utah. Oh yeah, I think the kid is back. I think it's gonna carry over into the game tomorrow night in San Antonio. Another reason why I believe that is Harrison Barnes. Even after the embarrassing loss versus OKC, he was asked, hey, do you have any? You used to believe in Wemby, or he's all right. He goes, yeah, 100%. I believe in him. And if Wemby was really, 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 down, I don't think he'd be dressing up as an anime character ahead of the game. I think he'd be, I think he was loose. I think he was ready to go, and he kept on saying over and over again, heading into before Utah. I'm okay. It's just a matter of rhythm. It's okay. I have to get used to these guys. I don't think it was necessarily on him, Raul. I believe it was just him just adjusting to his teammates. Okay, fine. The variable in this is the allergy issue. But, I think once that is over, I think he's fine. CP3 and him seem to be developing chemistry going a little by little. That is a Wemby that we like. He looks like he is in rare form. I like it. But Raul, he's the realist in this point right now. He's probably gonna laugh at me the next time he's on, and he'd be like, "See, I told you."
No, I mean when I say he's still kind of building into a rhythm, I mean as far as like how dominant he was, at the end of the season, I think he's still building into that. The conditioning, the rhythm. I think people are sort of discounting how big of a change it is to have Chris and Harrison in the lineup, especially Chris, different type of games, different type of leadership, different type of, ball movement, pace. It takes a little while to get used to that, especially, I'm trying to think, I don't know if Victor's ever played with sort of a, that type of veteran dominant point guard, when he was with the Asvel in France and Spurs last year, young point guards and so it's going to take him a little while, I think, to get used to Chris, but you can see they're starting to gel. You can see that Chris is starting to figure out, okay, well, they're going to need me to score here. They're going to need me to do this here. So, he's starting to inject himself a lot more.
Oh yeah. Chris Paul is, nonstop. You and I see him at the games. He is coaching. He says he didn't want to be a coach, but could have fooled me. Coaching on the court, coaching on the bench, coaching with Pop. Getting on refs alongside of Pop. He's definitely inserting himself in that leadership role, exactly what they wanted him to do. And I think it'll be infectious as the season goes on. They can start listening to him more. I think they definitely respect him. And you were there in the conference room.
They love Chris Paul. Love Chris.
Yeah, you were in that conference room with me when I asked Champagne about him, and about Chris Paul, and Champagne was like, "Oh my God, this and that, and this and that, and Paul this and Paul that." So yeah, he's definitely making an impact, but more importantly, he's making an impact on Wemby. So I think when not only do I believe is Wemby back, now that he's starting to show at least a game against Utah. I know 1 game sample size, but nevertheless, it's something for them to propel on moving forward. But overall, that is the Wemby that we like, but. Wemby did lead the Spurs in the win. Oh, you want to say something before we go to the game?
No, I was just going to say just some real quick. I I definitely think Chris Paul is going to be a NBA head coach, and I'm sort of predicting that Chris will win at least one NBA title as a head coach.
Absolutely. Oh, wow. Yeah. Hot take from Raul Dominguez here, Mr. AP writer himself there.
Yeah, I definitely think he'll be a head coach, and I definitely think he'll guide the team to at least one NBA title.
Man, you think if I thought Pop was fiery, I can see Chris Paul being equally fiery as a head coach. He is a competitor.
And he knows the game so well. I mean, he's just his basketball IQ is one of the best I've ever seen.
Yeah, exactly. But one of the best things that you'll ever see is Game Time. Yes, you want to go to Game Time right now. So you want to go to gametime.co. It's the best spot to get tickets. They got a new feature on the Game Time app. It's called Game Time Picks. That makes getting tickets to see your favorite teams play live even easier. Game Time Picks filters out the fluff to show you only the incredible deals on great seats, so you don't have to waste time searching through thousands of tickets. What else they got? You got views from your seat before you buy, the lowest price guarantee. What else you need? Event cancellation protection, job loss protection. They got it all. Game time picks, that curation makes it just easier for you to save more on sports, comedy, and theater. So many other events in your area. They got all-in pricing, and again, the lowest ticket price guarantee. Or Game Time will credit you 110% of the difference. So take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time picks. Download the Game Time app, create an account, use code LOCKEDONNBA for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account, redeem code LOCKEDONNBA for $20 off. Download Game Time today. What time is it? It is game time.
This is Emily Swallow, and you are listening to Locked On Spurs with Jeff Garcia.
And let's go ahead and bring back our guest, Mr. Raul Dominguez of the AP Sports. Join us again, once again, post-game as the Spurs defeated the Jazz. All right, so enough about Wemby. No, I guess I take it back. Nobody can get enough about Wemby if you're a Spurs fan. But the Spurs definitely did themselves a favor in not becoming the victim of Utah for their first win of the season, keeping Utah winless. We know what Wemby did. We dissected that completely. But outside of Wemby, what did you like? What did the Spurs do right versus Utah?
We kind of touched on it. Chris Paul had a tremendous game. First two games, I think Chris had 5 or 6 points. I think he had 11 or 13 assists his first two games, but only like 6 points. Or kind of seemed like he was kind of trying to set everybody up and was not taking his shot. Rather trying to set up his teammates. And I think he sort of you see him starting to take more shots. He's starting to get more involved in the offense. I think he, what mentioned earlier, he's starting to inject himself more into the offense. And I think he sees that, the Wemby and the team need his those mid-range jumpers. He needs to hit a shot to maybe break a drought. So seeing Chris is starting to get really comfortable with this offense. I think he talked about as far as the chemistry. That's still something they need to work on, but you can see he's starting to really feel good in that offense.
Yeah, he's definitely looking much more comfortable. I think what he's at Raul already back-to-back double-figure scoring nights.
Yeah,
I know he went again. Yeah, so he's getting that rhythm on the offensive end. Interesting enough, we were talking about him heading into the new season with the Spurs, saying we don't need to be a double-figure guy, just be out there leading the team, running the show, and everything. Now he's becoming, at least for 2 games, a threat offensively, and obviously, the assists. We know that they call him the point god for a reason. Yeah, I definitely agree with you. It looks like Chris Paul is getting comfortable, and against Utah, he was a big key for the Spurs to get that W. What I liked, Raul, was you got contributions from a little bit from everybody. And I want to start off with Mamu, the big man. I like what Pop did, bringing him in early, not in garbage time, not in the last few minutes of the game. They brought him early, and immediately you saw that chemistry with him and Wemby. Mamu cut in one motion, and Wemby found him, easy bucket. And he helped spread the floor a little bit for Wemby and just for the team in general. He finished with 10 points, but connected on 1 3-point shot, and he went 4 for 5 from the field. So he's a floor spreader. That's what the Spurs need, Raul.
Yeah, and we had talked about this, from the other game, OKC game. We had talked about how they needed guys that could cut into the lane and sort of give Wemby an option, and Sandro does that. Sandro has great chemistry with Wemby, and I love watching Sandro play just because of.
Oh yeah.
Sorry.
You see, even your dog likes what Mamu. Yeah. Your dog is a fan. Your dog's probably wearing a Mamu jersey right now.
He is. He knows it's my little cheap boy. So, but I love watching Sandro play because he's, he hustles. He's a great scorer.
Yeah.
He just has a love for the game, and he's always wanted to play for the Spurs, and you can sense that. That he loves being out there on the court. He's a great teammate where he's content on the bench, but when he's on that court, I mean, you can just feel sort of the joy that he plays with. Yeah. I think the Spurs need more of that. They have it with Keldon, with Jeremy, but Sandro is he's almost Manu-esque in terms of sort of the joy that he plays with.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And what else that I like from the Spurs versus Utah is, could we possibly also, we were talking about Wemby having that comeback game or bounce back game, and what about Keldon? Keldon, double figure scoring off the bench, 13 points. He connected on one 3-point shot. Hey, at this point, I'll take it, Raul. Really bringing that energy, attacking the rim as best he can do, as what we know he can do. So you got contributions from Keldon. I also got, Sochan. Can we talk about Sochan? Can't we? Seriously. I mean, he's got to be in the MIP race. He has to. Yeah. If he keeps this up, I understand. I get it. It's just a 4-game sample size now. But 11 points, 5 for 13 shooting. Again, we don't expect him to be Steph Curry, but, we'll take it. He made a 3-point shot, 5 rebounds, 3 assists, 2 steals, a block, just doing a little bit of everything and just bringing that hustle. It's safe to say, Raul, I believe that he's fine and very happy he is not doing point guard duties anymore.
Yeah, Jeremy's been incredible this season. You talked about him being MIP, and I also think, he's got a really good shot at being on the all-defensive team. Second team, maybe first team, depending on how the rest of the season goes, how the Spurs do. But he's just been great on both ends of the court. And, I mentioned this to somebody else that he kind of reminded me of Kawhi, not completely, but as far as remember when Kawhi came in, he was more defense, and then his offensive game just sort of developed and blossomed. And I see Jeremy do that. I mean, his footwork in the paint is really good. It's like, I know Pop's a huge Celtics fan. He loves Kevin McHale. He's mentioned that before, as far as Kevin McHale footwork. Sochan is starting to develop that type of footwork. So big leap from him this season.
Yeah. The other thing the Spurs did well was correcting that turnover issue. Just 11 for the game versus 20 plus versus OKC. And look, not to disparage the Jazz, but hey, numbers are numbers. They're not one of the best defensive teams. They're winless for a reason. They're like that old saying in the NFL, coach. What do you say? We are who we are. Our record shows who we are. I mean, that's what we are. And look, every team's going to have their injuries. Sure, Utah didn't have Markkanen. Spurs didn't have Vassell. They didn't have Trey Jones. So it is what it is. But the Spurs, I don't care who it was. It was Utah or Detroit or Houston, OKC again. They just needed to get a win, because losing 2 straight and the fashion they lost versus the Jazz, getting just stomped. I'm sorry, against OKC, excuse me. OKC just stomping them. They needed to get this win. You hit it on the head the last show. If they had lost versus Utah, man, that could have been kind of an early backbreaker for them. Not a complete, backbreak, but a good crunch, and that would have really hurt them. And the thing about this, too, Popovich was late to his post-game conference because he was speaking with the team at length after the OKC loss. So whatever he said may have worked, and I'm glad he did that, Raul.
Yeah, Pop, he's seemed like he's a lot more patient than he was, with obviously with Tony Parker and them. But fiery Pop still comes out. He still demands,
for sure.
Demands effort, demands. They play smart. Demands. That they get better with each game. So, I think he had the long talk because they were regressing, weren't progressing like he wanted them to.
Yeah.
Tonight they did. Obviously, like you mentioned, Utah was a little down, but but exactly like you said, at this point, any win's a good win for them. So something to kind of lift their spirits and to get them going. They're 2-3 right now, and honestly, they could be 3-2. They had that comeback against the Rockets that they just couldn't quite close out. If they had tried, if they had played a little bit better in the first half, they might have been able to pull that one out. But they're about where I thought they'd be right now.
Yeah, and look, the good news is they come back home at least for a game, and then they go back on the road. But I mean, what a game they got, man! Minnesota coming in, that'll be fun to watch. He is Raul Dominguez. Make sure to follow him on X at Dominguez5. You want to do that right now. Can't wait to see you tomorrow. That'll be good. Good to catch up with you. Back of the Frost, and got a little gift for you.
Is it a no-face costume like Victor's?
No, No. Although I have a great idea for him next Halloween, and I'm surprised he hasn't pulled this off. For those Star Wars nerds, listen up. How can he dress up as a Wampa? That big snow creature?
Yeah, I know. I know. It'd be good.
It's perfect. It's perfect.
I was just, who was it? Was it Grievous? Could be that as well. There's so many great costumes that Wemby could pull off.
Another one I think he could pull off too is Treebeard from Lord of the Rings. Just be Treebeard. I think that'll be perfect for him. But yeah, Wemby definitely won Halloween out of the Spurs. Again, he is Raul Dominguez. Follow my next @Dominguez5. Do that right now. He is with the AP Sports in San Antonio, covering all things sports related to the city, as well as your Spurs. So we'll look for his write-up after the game versus Minnesota this weekend. When I say he's hard at work in the media room, he is hard at work. Hey, we'll be back we'll be back next week, Monday, catching you up on what happened over the weekend with the Spurs, any news that may have broken, and of course getting ready for the rest of the week next week. All things silver and black. As mentioned earlier, we have a newsletter. Locked On Spurs newsletter is in the description below. Click the link. Go subscribe to it right now. Just gives you a little extra feature right here on Locked On Spurs. While you're at it, subscribe to the rest of the Locked On NBA newsletters as well, from Locked On Celtics and Bulls and Rockets. You pick a team, subscribe to them right now. See what the enemy's up to, huh? So for Raul Dominguez, I am Jeff Garcia. We're going to put a lock in this episode of Locked On Spurs.